All right, welcome everybody to the Ron Brooks Show on this, what is it, Thursday night. I hope everybody's doing well. I'm here on the road. I'm actually in West Palm Beach. Just came back from dinner with Alex, one of our $100 supporters on the Ron Brooks Show, and had a really nice dinner. It was great to meet him, and great to meet somebody who is actively supporting the show and really appreciates what we try to do here. I thought I'd do this today. I don't know when I'm going to have a chance. I'm on the road until next Wednesday. I'm not sure when I'm going to have another chance to do a show. So I figured I'd jump in. I jump in with a show tonight. And since I came across this essay from Jordan Peterson about his resignation, I figured we'd talk about that. And so I think there's plenty of material. I'm doing this off of my laptop, so I need to make sure that everything is running smoothly. Hopefully, you guys can hear me. Sound is good. Visuals are good. Let me know. And let me see. Super chat is on, so feel free to use the super chat to ask any questions. I will try to monitor that as best as I can while I'm doing the show. I've got like 55 windows opened up on this little 12-inch screen, but we will manage this. And I should get into practice, right? Because I'm going to be traveling more, hopefully this spring, and I don't want to stop doing shows while I'm traveling. So we've got to get this set up. We've got a good camera over there. We've got lights. We've got nice lighting. Hopefully you like the effect. The sound is good. The mic is good. I think we're doing well. Ali, thank you. I really appreciate that. Ali just gave $20 just for my dedication, no questions. So I appreciate that. This window I can close. This window I need open. I need to find the page where let me close all this stuff. You guys tell me if there's a problem with the video or with, let me know if there's a problem with the video or the audio, because I'm not going to be in a position to monitor everything. So that's one disadvantage of the setup, is I can't really monitor it. I'm too engaged. So anyways, I'm here in West Palm Beach. It's beautiful. I'm probably not that far from where Donald Trump lives. I could go harass him. I could go say hello, but probably won't do that. Also, not far from Jeffrey Epstein's old hunting grounds, and who else lives down here? Anyway, West Palm Beach is thriving. A lot of Wall Street people are moving down here. A lot of hedge funds are moving down here. It is beautiful. It's beautiful. The weather right now, particularly right now, is gorgeous. It's not humid. It's warm. It's just beautiful. You can go stroll outside during the day, at night. The weather's amazing. Dave says, check out Brickell in Miami. The skyscrapers at night are magical. Modern infrastructure, luxury cars, no homeless people. Florida is doing something right. Yeah, I mean, West Palm Beach is gorgeous. It really is beautiful. I mean, Florida is doing something right. It's the least regulated state in the country, one of the lowest tax rates in the country. It's definitely doing certain things right. Let's see. So yeah, West Palm Beach is beautiful. Got a nice hotel, got a nice view of the canal, and then the ocean in the background. And I will be here until tomorrow. I'm gonna be in Naples on Saturday and Sunday. And I will be in kind of in between Miami and Fort Lauderdale on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Wednesday I fly back to Puerto Rico. So doing meetings for my hedge fund. I did a few meetings this morning, some meetings tomorrow, and then meetings next week, trying to raise money for the hedge fund. If anybody knows anybody, well, I shouldn't do this. I'm not allowed to do this. I'm not marketing the hedge fund here. Anyway, I've been marketing the hedge fund at this conference today. All right, I wanted to talk about, and we're not going to make this a long show because I have to admit I'm kind of tired. Eyes are, it's time to go to bed. But I did want to jump in with this announcement that Jordan Peterson made today, which I thought was quite interesting. And I thought his analysis was quite good. And I thought it would be a good opportunity to talk about these issues, which we talk about a lot, but it's good to go back to them. So again, let me just remind you, Super Chat, we try to raise $600 every show. No reason for this show to be different, although I didn't give you a lot of notice, so there are probably fewer people listening live. But the goal is always $600. We've got Catherine Mendez here to keep track and to motivate you and to encourage you to contribute. So hopefully we can get there. I intend in the next few shows to do a bunch of movie reviews. I've watched now one of the 3 or 4 movies I'm supposed to watch to get back to you. So I will be getting back to you with movie reviews soon as well. All right, let's get to Jordan Peterson. Anyway, Jordan Peterson announced today, I think, that he has resigned from his position as a full tenured professor at University of Toronto. So he has left a tenure-track position at the University of Toronto. Now, a lot of times that's a big deal because, it's a sweet job to have as a tenured professor. Jordan Peterson doesn't need the money, so it's not an issue of money for Jordan Peterson. But it is, it's pretty noteworthy. Jordan is, he's not even 60. God, that makes me feel terrible. So Jordan Peterson is actually younger than I am. Go figure. Jordan Peterson is younger than I am. Because I'm 60 and he hasn't turned 60 yet, so he must be 59. Anyway, for somebody 59 to leave a tenure-track position at a university, why? It's an amazing job. You can be fired from it, basically. I mean, you have to rape a student to be fired. You get to teach. You get to engage with young people. We know, probably from watching Jordan from the videos, that he loves teaching, and it's a tragedy for somebody as able, as competent, as engaged as Jordan is in teaching and with students, to see him leave the university at a relatively young age. Usually professors hang on well into their 70s and 80s. But they have it. I don't know how old Jordan Peterson is. Just in his words, he says, "I am now Professor Emeritus, and before I turn 60." So that means he hasn't turned 60 yet. So it looks like he's about a year younger than me. So the question is, why did Jordan Peterson leave academia? Why is Jordan Peterson quit the University of Toronto? Because it's clear he loved his job. It's clear he loved teaching. It's clear he loved the students and the interaction between them. So what is it that caused him to leave the job? It's not health related. It's not, because, again, according to Jordan Peterson, let me just be clear before I say anything else. I don't know what happened at the University of Toronto. I don't know the politics of this, if there are any politics of it. I don't know if there was pressure on him to resign. I don't know if the fact that he took a year leave to deal with his health issue was an issue. I don't know any of this stuff. I am basically assuming that everything Jordan Peterson has written in this article that he wrote is true. I have no way to verify it otherwise or to challenge it. So I'm just going to go with the article as it is. And so we'll use that. According to Jordan Peterson, he resigned. He was not forced out. And it was not a health issue. It was not any reason other than he decided to resign for the following reasons. All right. By the way, given that we're so far behind in terms of just the super chat, try and do $20 questions, just because I'm not going to do a very long show, and that's one way that we can get there quickly. Anyway, so why did he resign? He's saying, look, so this is his first reason. Basically, he gives 2 reasons. The first reason, he says, he's training students. Many of these students are heterosexual white men. And he says the fact is that they have a negligible chance of getting a job today in academia. Diversity, inclusion, and equity. It's usually diversity, equity, and inclusion, but he likes to call it diversity, inclusion, and equity because that spells out die, which he obviously likes. Basically rules out the possibility of hiring non-minority faculty members. Now, again, I don't know how accurate it is, but it sounds from everything we're reading about woke, it sounds like it's bad. Now, to some extent, this has been true for a long time, right? For decades. Departments and universities and schools have tried to create diverse faculty and focused on hiring minorities. I think I've told you the story that when I was being interviewed by Santa Clara University, and before they offered me the job, they, one of it's a whole ugly story of my attempt to get a job at Santa Clara, ending with the idea that the Jesuits didn't want to hire me because there were too many Jews in the finance department. But before we got to the fact that they didn't want me because I was Jewish, they made an offer to every minority that was on the market possible, particularly this one woman who was black, and they figured they'd score twice. They get a woman and black. She ended up going to Ohio State, so she kind of snubbed them. And that's what made it possible for me to get an academic job after all, because all these other people got even better paying jobs at better universities or higher ranked universities, which left the opening for me to ultimately get, and once we overcame the reluctance to hire another Jew. So universities for decades now have been trying to create these diverse environment, but it hasn't been, in a sense, a religion. It hasn't been we hire minorities or nobody at all. It hasn't been at the kind of pace and at the level and at the kind of attitude that exists today. So today, it is very difficult, unless you're one of these minorities, to actually get an academic job. More difficult than it was even in the past, where it was a challenge. Today, it's even more difficult to do so. So he's saying, look, it doesn't seem right to train these students, to invest so much in these students, when they're not going to get a job. There's just no hope for them. It's depressing. And it's not right. But there's nothing I can do within the system to change that. He goes on to say that one of the reasons his students in particular are unlikely to get jobs is because they are his students. That in a sense, he thinks that there's a certain blacklisting going on out there in the profession around him and his students. So that if somebody gets their graduate degree working under Jordan Peterson, nobody's going to hire them because of Jordan Peterson, because he's so shunned by the profession. And he says, and this isn't just some inconvenience, these facts render my job morally untenable. And I understand that in a sense of training graduate students, right? He could quit training graduate students and just teach undergrads. He likes teaching undergrads. You can tell it again from his performance in class. But to him, this is a key point. The second issue, so this is reason number one, his graduate students can't get jobs because they're his, and because some of them, at least, the ones who are white and male, just can't because they're white and male. Second reason, he says, is because he is just appalled and disgusted by the ideology that he believes is currently destroying universities. And ultimately, if they destroy the university, destroying the culture, and he just doesn't want to be part of it anymore. He's saying that this whole woke attitude, the whole idea of only hiring BIPOC, I don't know what BIPOC is, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, into positions is unbelievably destructive. It's unbelievably destructive when done in universities, and it's unbelievably destructive outside of universities. And I think his analysis here is good. It's telling. Generally, I think this essay that he wrote this. I should give you the reference. He wrote this today, from what I can tell. Yeah, January 19th. So yesterday. He wrote this yesterday. For the National Post, for the Canadian National Post. And it's titled, Jordan Peterson, Why I'm No Longer a Tenured Professor at the University of Toronto. And it's very good. It's very, I would edit it, but, in terms of the content, I think it's very good. He goes off, he's explaining what the consequences of current hiring practices are going to be, not just at the university, but culture-wide. He says universities are hiring people that are unqualified. They're bringing people into graduate programs that should not be there. They're hiring, universities are doing away with objective testing. In other words, tests. More and more universities are announcing that they're doing away with testing in deciding who to admit to the university. This is true both in the undergraduate and at the graduate level. This means that we're not necessarily getting the most highly quality people, students. They're being admitted into these programs more on the basis of their race, gender, sexual identification, whatever. And as a consequence, there's a real possibility that they're not qualified. It's not true that everybody can learn everything. For example, there's a real need to know and to understand and to be able to analyze and to be able to do pretty sophisticated statistics. We've talked about this on this show many, many times. In order to analyze healthcare data, to analyze psychological data, a lot of these professions now rely on data collection. Now, whether they should rely on so much data collection or not is a different question. But the fact is that the field today is very data reliant, and yet many of these students don't know and are not smart enough at the end of the day to get a lot of this stuff. He says other professors, his colleagues in admissions, the committees that admit students, the committees that hire new professors, they all craft DIE statements to obtain research grants. They all use DIE as a standard to hire and to bring people in. They don't believe in this stuff. They don't believe in DIE. They don't believe in this diversity, insanity, this equity idea. But they do it anyway. Because they feel like if not, they're going to be shunned. They're going to be ridiculed. They're going to get into trouble with administration. They're going to get into trouble with students. They even allow themselves to be submitted, as Jordan Peterson writes, to these unbelievable anti-bias training conducted by unqualified people to try to get rid of biases that are implicit, that it's not clear that exist. And it's not clear, it's pretty clear that these trainings won't get rid of them. Their whole purpose is to induce guilt in you, and to induce guilt and doubt in you. These are The test for implicit biases, I'll put it mildly, the objectivity has been challenged. Objectivity has been challenged. I mean, if you get rid of objective testing, if you get rid of all the testing for graduate school and you just let everybody in, I mean, this is going to have a terrible effect on students, on the profession, on research, on study, and professors of the future. If you hire anybody, not because of their ability, not because of their skill, you're guaranteeing a lowering of standard, a lowering of quality. Now, even once you get a degree, Peterson writes, the accreditation bodies for clinical psychology now will only accredit university clinical psychology programs if they have a social justice orientation. So schools have to do this, otherwise they're not going to get accredited. So accredited bodies won't accredit the students. So it's useless to get a degree if you can't then work. I mean, this is the whole evil of licensing and the way it works. And on and on and on, social justice, wokeism, however you want to call it, is everywhere. And it's infiltrating not just the humanities, it's infiltrating, we've talked about it, infiltrating medicine, it's infiltrating discipline after discipline after discipline. And Jordan is basically saying, he doesn't want to be part of this system. He doesn't want to be a part of sanctioning all of this. He says, he writes here, what exactly what am I supposed to do when I meet a graduate student or young professor hired on DIE grounds? Manifest instant skepticism regarding their professional ability? What a slap in the face to a truly meritorious young outsider. He's right. I mean, you can't, if you meet somebody who's black, a minority, you can't assume they're incompetent. But the doubt exists because of why they were hired. So it creates this ridiculous situation in which you want to treat individuals as individuals, but you can't ignore the fact that they've not been hired because of their individual ability. I mean, he says this, and this is great. This is a really, really good sentence. The DIE ideology is not friend to peace and tolerance. It is absolutely and completely the enemy of competence and justice. I love that. It is absolutely and completely the enemy of competence and justice. And that's really what's happening. You're getting a reduction in competence and you're getting massive injustice. People not hired that should be hired, people getting hired that shouldn't be hired. I'm going to give you a link in the chat here, and I'll include the link in the under the video. I'll include a link. But there's I just put the link in the chat for those of you interested in finding the article. Now, this is not just in academia. As I think the Oscars now are going to be balanced not just by ability and skill and artistry and all of that, but by the color of the skin of the person who made it. It's going to be balanced, and prizes are going to reflect the diversity of the movie-going audience. But this is not just in terms of prizes. According to an article published on Barry Weiss's Substack, this is the author writes, quote, "We spoke to more than 25 writers, directors, and producers, all of whom identify as liberal, and all of whom describe a pervasive fear of running afoul of new dogma. How to survive the revolution? By becoming its most ardent supporters. Suddenly, every conversation with every agent or head of content started with, is anyone BIPOC attached to this?" You want a hit show? It's not going to be a hit if the writing's great. It's not going to be a hit if the acting's great. It's not going to be a hit if the direction's great. It'll never be made. Nobody will ever invest in it unless it's got a diversity quota. I mean, this is sick. It's racist. CBS, for example, according to Jordan, has literally mandated that every writer's room be at least 40% BIPOC in 2011, 50% in 2022. Not 2011, 2021. I mean, this is real racism. And this only penalizes people of ability who don't happen to have the right skin color. It's a racist policy against people of ability. And of course, again, even if you have ability and you happen to have the right skin color, now people are going to question whether you're there because you really have ability or whether you're there because of your skin color. So it encourages racism. It encourages doubt. It encourages skepticism and discrimination in every direction. I mean, skin color, gender, ethnicity, race, sexual preferences is now the most important qualification for study, research, and for employment in a variety of different fields. And then on top of that, this has been brought into the business world through the ESG movement, environment, social, and governance scores. ESG scores, Jordan says, are like the social scores in China. It tells you whether a company has social justice as part of it, whether its hiring practices are okay, whether it quote, treats the environment appropriately, whether it has the right number of minority in its board of directors, whether it hires the right people, whether it gives people enough leave, pregnancy leave, birth leave, whatever is sexy and popular these days. And ESG now pervades American business. It's everywhere. We've talked about this on this show. Investors now use these ESG scores to decide who to invest with and who not. And CEOs are falling over each other to try to raise the ESG score, to appeal to the investors who are using the score. Again, nobody believes this. Maybe a few people like the CEO of BlackRock, but nobody believes in this stuff. But they believe they have to believe. They believe they have to act as if they believe. They believe it's a requirement now of their job to play into this. So CEOs don't give one iota about DIE or about ESG or about any of these socially justice issues. Play into this. Advocate for this. Change their corporate policy in order to accommodate this. Because they think this is what the world is demanding of them. And just as Ayn Rand said, the sanction of the victim. They're willing to sanction all this in the name of peace and leave us alone and let us do our job. But of course, nobody is going to let you do your job. Every aspect of your business is going to be regulated and controlled based on these kind of criteria. You're feeding this, you CEOs. I give Jordan a lot of credit for going after CEOs. This is what he writes. For shame, CEOs signaling a virtue you don't possess and shouldn't want to please a minority who literally live their lives by displeasure. You're evil capitalists, after all, and should be proud of it. At the moment, I can't tell if you're more responsibly timid, if you're more reprehensibly timid even than the professors. They are more reprehensibly timid than the professors. The professors have limited wealth, limited prospects. The professors, are detached from the real world in some fundamental sense. They're beholden to their theories and ideologies and to the abstract knowledge that they have or lack of knowledge that they have. CEOs are more worldly. They know. the consequence of this nonsense. They know what is going on in the world. They know how this hurts their business. They have the wealth, they have the power, they have the voice to be able to change it. But what don't they have? They don't have the courage. They don't have the moral conviction. They don't have the will to stand up to the intellectuals, to stand up to the purveyors of evil ideas, to stand up to the professors and tell them, no, garbage. We're going to run our business to make money. We're going to run our business in a way that maximizes our profitability, our shareholder wealth. We're not going to succumb to this nonsense, this anti-reality, anti-profit, anti-human life ideology. We're just not going to do it. The businessmen of all the people are the ones who can afford to do it most, and are ones who I know are the most skeptical about this nonsense. So it's tragic to see the sanction of the victim. It's tragic to see businessmen succumbing to this. But this is the power of ideas. When you have bad ideas, when altruism is your guide, when who is most in need has a moral claim against you, when you've given up on reason, when you've given up on justice, real justice, when you've given up on ability, and when the moral standard is how much we can sacrifice the able to the not able, how much we can sacrifice to those who claim the most grievance, claim the most need, it is all lost. What we're seeing today is the left embracing this form of altruism and taking it to its nihilistic, anti-life, necessary conclusion. We don't care if you can actually build that. We care what color skin you have. We don't care if you can actually cure this patient. We care what color skin you have and what color skin they have. We don't care about human life. We don't care about happiness. We don't care about prosperity. We don't care about success. We care that the people we define as needy are sacrificed too. What we want really, deep down, what DIE, what ESG, what social justice has always wanted, is to tear down the able. It's to tear down the successful. It's to tear down the rational. It's certainly to tear down the egoistic. It's to destroy. It's nihilism. There's no value here. So kudos to Jordan Peterson for quitting. Kudos for writing an essay explaining it. It can only go so deep because Jordan can only go so deep. He can only explain these phenomena as you know, maybe as psychological, but here as just cultural phenomena. He doesn't go deep into what brings them about. He certainly doesn't understand the causal relationship between altruism and about what's going on in the world today. But what we're living today is the consequence of Kant, Hegel, Marx, Frankfurt School, postmodernism, and the woke is the nihilism of young people, the nihilism of our professors, and the cowardice, the moral cowardice of our business leaders is all a consequence of that. Ideas drive the world, for better or for ill. All right. Thanks, everybody. I did not intend to criticize Jordan. I've done that in other formats. There are lots of opportunities to criticize him. Here, I thought he did a good job, so I want to commend him on that. All right, let's see. We have got a bunch of Super Chat questions, so we are going to take them. I'm going to quickly look to see if there's stuff related. JJJ Jingji, whatever, says you met Jordan Peterson presumably at that event with Dave Rubin. Did you like him personally? I didn't really get to know him very much personally. He was a little standoffish and cold. I mean, he seems like a nice guy. I don't know if we would have gotten along or not. He's got kind of a dark personality. I don't think we would get along. I don't think we would, not get along, but I just don't. We've got very different personalities. I'm the sunny one. Let's see. All right, I don't see much. All right, Dave's got a bunch of super chat here, just giving me advice on food. Dave says Nayara sushi in South Beach is great. They bring the fish out in dry ice. Cool. I probably won't be eating there. I don't think I'll make it to South Beach. Let's see. Don't forget we got the super chat. We're still pretty early in terms of the amounts of money. We've got about $180 raised, so another four, 320 or so still needs to be raised. So Dave also says, if you need an Airbnb in Miami, check out the Icon in Bryn Canal. Don't need an Airbnb. Has the largest pool in the U.S. God, that's amazing. I was just there last week. Florida in January, February is perfect. Really is perfect here. January, February, it is perfect. It's like spring in California. Spring and fall, and a bit of summer in California. It's the other 10 months that are humid and disgusting. Yep, agree. Trevor says, $50. Thank you, Trevor. Really appreciate that. Trevor says, I'm optimistic that this will come to a head and people will tire of it. I agree. I've been saying that for a while. But the question is, what then? Because people tiring of it doesn't get rid of the ideas. The ideas that brought us wokeism, the ideas that brought us all this nonsense, are not going to go away. The altruism that brought us here, the collectivism that brought us here, is not, the tribalism that brought us here, will not go away. So how does it manifest itself? And as I've said, I think it manifests itself in a kind of fascism, in a counter response, in a backlash against wokeism, but that comes from maybe the right, maybe the left, but manifests itself differently. It's certainly going to manifest itself in collectivism and statism and fascism economically. Perhaps existing institutions can be reformed, but I think there are more options than ever for disruption towards new platforms and institutions if only we don't get demoralized. Yes, I agree. It's a time to fight back. And we have platforms to fight back, like this, like YouTube and the internet more broadly. And maybe ultimately platforms built on blockchain and crypto, so they can't be changed, they can't be attacked. But I think that those of us who can fight back, not just on the concretes, not just on the wokeism or the socialism or on the racism, on the particulars, but on the entire philosophical movement, on the movement of ideas, there are very few of us. And I don't know that we can win that battle because it's coming from the right and the left. And we've got too many battles to fight. And, I don't see us having enough of an impact right now to be able to change it. So while I think the specifics of wokeism Americans are going to tire of, if what they replace it with is some collectivism of the right instead, we're in no better shape. All right, let's see. Michael asks, why is scarcity an invalid concept in a truly free market? It's not that it's an invalid concept. Scarcity is not an invalid concept. It's not the foundation of economics, which is what so many economists are presented. Even Thomas Sowell starts out his economics textbooks with that, economics is a science that comes out of the fact that we live in a world of scarcity. And that's just not true. It's a misconception of what scarcity actually means. We live in a world where we can't get every one of our desires without any effort just because we limit. But that's not scarcity. Scarcity is the fact that, you can't get everything for free. It's not a Garden of Eden. But that's not economics. Because the fact is that we don't have anything as human beings. Or we have very little until we produce it. That is, the issue in economics is not scarcity. The issue of economics is production. It's how do we take the world around us and create the stuff we want? Not ad infinitum, not zero, because that's metaphysically impossible, not a cost of zero, because that's metaphysically impossible. But how do we create stuff? How do we change the world? And it's not that there's this issue of scarcity. There's a reality in which, there are plenty of berries. There's plenty of game to hunt if the human race is small and limited and that's all they do. But the only way that human beings can grow is not by creating more animals or creating more berries. And for the size of population of hunter-gatherers, there's no end to the number of berries and the number of game to hunt. What creates this view of scarcity is production. Okay, now we're producing, and now some people have bows and arrows and other people don't, because some people have produced them and other people don't. Does that mean bows and arrows are scarce? No. It just means some people produced the bows and arrows and some people didn't. And that you don't get anything for free. You don't get anything for nothing. And the world, reality, doesn't just produce stuff for you. There's no manna from heaven. So the whole field of economics is not founded on the idea of scarcity. It's founded on the idea of production. And then the question economics has to answer is, how do we produce? What are the conditions in which we produce best? And how do we trade? How do we know what to produce? How do we know what to trade? What's the role of prices in trading, in producing? That's what's interesting. That's what the field of, so economics is the study of production and trade. There's no scarcity in the definition of the field of economics. And the whole conception of scarcity as there's just not enough stuff out there. Well, make it. But recognizing and making it doesn't make it abundant at the price of zero. It makes it creates the goods that we have, and then, but there's a cost to producing, there's a cost to trading. Scarcity kind of blows all that away. Oh, I want more stuff. JJ Jigsby, wait a second, we're going to wait with that because we've got other $20 questions. Okay. Michael asks again, why is scarcity an invalid concept in a truth market? As I said, it's not. And can we turn your answer on this into a short clip? Don't turn this particular answer I gave into a short clip. Let me work out a more comprehensive answer about why scarcity, the way people think about it, is illegitimate. But let me do a little bit more thinking and be less tired when I give you the answer before you turn it into a short clip. Michael also asks, in a lot of World War II movies and shows produced in Germany, they make a distinction between the Wehrmacht and the SS, as though only the SS carried out atrocities, while the Wehrmacht, which is the army, the military, were honorable. Is there any truth to this? No. It's true that the SS were particularly responsible for the atrocities, and the SS was in charge of many of the most horrific acts. But there were plenty of atrocities committed by the regular army, commanded by the regular army, or often with SS officers dictating it. Look, Germany wants to make it out, and many people do want to make out that, oh, most people were good. Most people would have never done what the SS did. Most people are not Nazis. And, maybe that's true. I mean, it's true that most people are not Nazis. A vast majority of Germans never joined the Nazi party. I think most Germans would have never, out of their own initiative, initiated a Holocaust. They were not murderous in that sense. But the fact is that most of them did nothing to stop this, did nothing to fight Hitler, and did nothing when commanded to pull the trigger and shoot, innocent civilians, just murder them. They did it. Now, you could argue they were fearful that if they didn't do it, they would be killed. That's true. But there was no opposition, or very little opposition. And that they should be condemned for. Now, Jordan Peterson believes that most of us would be Nazis if we were put in that situation. I don't think that's true. Some would be, but even the Germans, most weren't Nazis. Most, I don't believe that all of us, none of us would be courageous enough to help save innocent people. None of us would be courageous to disobey orders. None of us. I don't think that's true. I don't have that low of an opinion of the human race. Michael asks, off topic, but I've been thinking about this. Why did it take 200,000 years and a genius to discover free will as focus? Surely early man was aware of the mental struggles to solve problems. I think I answered this question a few weeks ago. You asked it before and I answered it. Look, it took 190,000 years for human beings to ask, what's the purpose of life? And what is reality made of? And what am I doing here? And why does this all exist? That is, it took 190,000 years or more than that, until you had the first philosopher. Greek, was it Thales, the first philosopher, who asked big questions. For 190,000 years, human beings, and to this day, 99% of human beings, live their lives without asking philosophical questions. To ask a philosophical question, never mind to answer it properly, is a massive achievement and requires a certain level of affluence, time to think. It requires a certain culture, and it requires a particular genius who asks these questions. I don't know what the appropriate time frame is. I don't know how it works. Yes, when you read Ayn Rand, it seems obvious, why didn't they get this before? But obviously it's not obvious because nobody got it before. Nobody got it in parallel. Nobody got it after. You get it from Ayn Rand. Somebody has to discover these things. Somebody has to articulate them. And it takes unique geniuses in all of human history to do so. Ayn Rand was one of them. So I don't think it's a legitimate question. I don't think there's any way to answer it. It's just a fact. Why did it take 195,000 years for human beings to discover logic? Or the primacy of existence, which is how long it took before Aristotle. It turns out that none of this is obvious. We live based on it, but to think about it, and this is the free will, to engage your mind actively in abstract pursuits is a modern phenomenon of the last 5,000 years or less, which most people don't engage in, overwhelming majority of people don't engage in, and whom only a few geniuses advance our knowledge in. It's the best I can do. Ali asks, why are Arabs treated like a minority? My school is like 10x worse than any school in the US. I don't understand what you exactly mean. Why why Arabs are not treated like a minority. My school is 10x worse than any school in the U.S. Well, they are treated as a minority in the U.S., but I don't know, because they haven't established themselves as in need. But think about it. How much money the Arab countries who don't have oil get in foreign aid, get in welfare. If not for the violence coming out of the Muslim world, I think Arabs would be treated even more as needy, and therefore as a source for sacrifice of the West. I think they already are. But you guys haven't made enough noise about how needy you are and how the West owes you. I think that's why. Andrew asks, many companies eager to hire blacks literally cannot find anyone qualified. Yes, I know. A tragedy of the 20th century is leftist policies decimated the black communities and black education and black rise to the middle class. Yet the left still thinks they're helping. How are they so unaware? Well, because they're evasive, self-deceptive. They lie to themselves. And they couch it all as some positive rah-rah ideology that justifies it all. But yes, they're completely evasive. And of course, the people to blame here are the intellectuals. And the victims are the men on the street, as always the case. It's the leadership of the black community has betrayed the black community, has stabbed the black community in the back, has kept them poor, has kept them uneducated through the policies that they've advocated. And that is one of the great tragedies of America. And it's one that we keep repeating because there doesn't seem to be any movement to improve the quality of black community leadership. Adam asks, Yuan, thank you for showing us how following Jordan can be the wrong path, but at the same time, how he can still have good lessons to teach us. Absolutely. You've got to identify the good and the bad. You should be commended for the same courage you are commending him for. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate that. Let's see. Hunter. Do you have any recommendation sources for learning general history? Particularly something that someone with an Alabama public school education could grasp, hypothetically. Keep up the good work you run. I don't know. There's a big series about human history, the story of civilization, I think it's called, or something like that, by Durante, that is very good. It's like, I don't know, 15 volumes, so it's big, but you can get it on audiobooks. It's very hard. You've got to, I am right now, I'm interested, I'd say in history, my main interest in history, the thing I'm most passionate about in history, is the period between the beginning of the Renaissance and the Industrial Revolution. In a sense, the history that led us to the Industrial Revolution and the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. And thank you, Tom Schubert says, Will Durant, of course it's Will Durant. So I recommend, he's actually got some shorter history books. They're good. I mean, they're not perfect, but they're good, and they'll give you a good overview. So I'd say anything by Will Durant for a good overview of history. And again, you could do the whole multi-volume set if you're really into it. Right now, I'm interested in the history from the beginning of the Renaissance through the beginning and into the Industrial Revolution. And I'm just trying to get books about the Enlightenment, about the Renaissance, about the Reformation. I'm reading a book right now about the Reformation. I mean, the problem with the book I'm reading right now is it's got too much detail. Too many things about the Catholic Church that I don't think are that crucial and important. It's very hard to find a historian who really grasps essentials and who can connect ideas to historical events. So it's difficult. I recommended The Cave in the Light, which is not so much a history, but a interwinding history and philosophy. But I would recommend that to anybody, and written in a way that I think anybody can understand. So I'll try to recommend the books as I'm reading them, but certainly Will Durant is a good place to start. Generally, read old history books. So go to used bookstores rather than stuff that's published right now, because stuff that's published right now is going to have kind of a leftist woke. I prefer reading Marxist history from a Marxist perspective from 50 years ago, than the kind of wokish, fragmented, disintegrated, non-essentialized history of today. Because at least a Marxist I can correct for the Marxist bias. The stuff today is just hard to read, to understand, to comprehend, because it's so fragmented. Ali asks, what is your stand on Germany paying billions of dollars to Israel Jewish community as compensation? Do you think it penalized the normal German citizens who has nothing to do with the war itself, specifically after all this time? Look, I think that it's appropriate to pay reparations to the victims of the Holocaust. So to that generation that actually suffered from the generation that inflicted the wounds. But once the generation dies out, no, I don't think it should be ongoing. I don't think it should be forever. I think it should have been the first few years after. Think about it. The amount of wealth that was stolen by the Nazis from the Jews. I think that should have been returned, in a sense, with interest, and reparations from in the first few decades after the war to Jews who actually suffered under the hands of the Nazis is appropriate. But then it's, most of the Holocaust survivors are dead. And it's over. And unfortunately, the reparations are still being paid to family members and to the Israeli government. And, guilt is something the Germans have embraced. So I don't think reparations after the actual victims are gone is appropriate. All right, JJ Jigsby asks, did you catch the story about Ethan Klein of the H3 podcast deleting his 2 interviews with Jordan Peterson to appease woke culture, presumably? Yes, I read that. Horrible, stupid, disgusting state of the world. And Jordan Peterson's not that radical. I'm much more radical than Jordan Peterson is. It's sad. It's a sad state of the world. Yash Arya asks, long-term thinking shows stealing isn't selfish, helping yourself. Doesn't it also show that it hurts you, but doesn't help others to give them the unearned? To help others, win-win is the only way. Absolutely. Giving people the unearned is harmful to them. It's an injustice not just to you, but to them. Welfare is bad for the recipient, but so is blind charity. So yes, don't give your relative money just because they're your relative if they haven't earned it. It does them harm, and it does you harm. Michael asks, if you want to test a man's character, give him power. That's one way to test a man's character, not the only one. Test a man's character, give him challenges. People break long before they gain power. And there are lots of people that I know have bad character without never having ascertained power. Yasharia writes, scarcity means desires exceeding resources. It means resources are finite, not fixed. Scarcity is why we need production, efficiency, and trade. Otherwise, we could directly consume to survive. But most of us, the desires we don't know we have. And this is why I don't like the term scarcity. Most of our desires, is there scarcity of iPhones? Did we have a desire for iPhones before the iPhone was made? Before we learned we should desire it? Resources are not finite. They're not, as Julian Simon proves. So scarcity is not why we need production. Because we need production to discover that we want iPhones. So this definition of scarcity, it does not make it legit or does not make it important from an economics perspective. We need production efficiency and trade in order to survive, in order to satisfy and discover our values. Our desires are not important here. We only desire something after it's produced. And as human beings, we cannot directly consume to survive unless we're willing to live as hunter-gatherers. And even then, the hunting is hard unless we produce bows and arrows, for example. So as human beings, and this is what makes us different for animals. Animals experience scarcity. Human beings experience a lack of production, a lack of thinking, a lack of imagination, a lack of ideas, a lack of ingenuity. They don't experience scarcity because they don't depend on nature to just provide. Tom Schubadam says, just finished the first season of The Expanse. Fascinating. Isn't the basic situation laid out untenable? The Belters are basically the slaves of Earth and Mars. They can't leave the belt and depend completely on Earth. Well, but they could be just traders with Earth. They don't have to be slaves of Earth. And they're not exactly slaves. They're just being exploited. So as you'll see in future episodes, some of this is worked out. Now, in season 2, this alien is introduced, which complicates the whole story. And I think that's the weakest part of The Expanse is actually the alien. I think the politics of Mars, Earth, and the Belt is the most interesting part of it. And that actually gets resolved at the end in a kind of an interesting way. So it's definitely worth watching. And again, I like the show primarily for the characters. I think it's a very good show in terms of characterization. And I like the political premise. Mars resents Earth, and they've invested heavily in creating this independent, very militaristic culture, but they've split away from Earth, but yet they're both exploiting the Belt. The Belt wants to be independent. There is a certain Heinlein aspect to it. I think it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. All right, we are at, what are we at? $365, so we're about 140, no, what am I talking about? 240 short of our $600 goal. I've got one Super Chat question that I'm going to answer, and then I'm going to go to sleep because I'm literally nodding off here. I don't know. I got up really early this morning because I had to prepare for the meetings I had. And this answer is going to be really short, so if you want to ask a question, ask it soon. Stefan asked, thoughts on Private Ryan, Saving Private Ryan. Do you think the mission to save Private Ryan was a proper military mission? So first, I did a whole movie review of Saving Private Ryan, so you can find it in a back episode. Maybe even Action Jackson made a short video of it. I don't know. He might have. So you can find it there. So I reviewed the movie. I don't particularly like the movie. But I'm trying to remember why I don't like it. Well, I think it's too naturalistic. It's too realistic. it's they're sent on this mission that has no purpose other than it's a mission. None of them survive. They all die for what? What happens when it happens kind of haphazardly. Yeah, I mean, I can't remember all the details, but I didn't particularly like the story. Is a mission to save Private Ryan a proper military mission? I think it's appropriate to take a Private Ryan out of combat, to send a whole bunch of people into enemy territory to risk their lives for it. No, I don't think it's a proper military function. I think you're sacrificing these kids who also have mothers, who also have parents, who also have lives, for the sake of one person. Yes, whose family is. So I would definitely get this guy out and help this guy get out, right? But I wouldn't risk the lives of a bunch of people in order to do it. I think that's inappropriate. And it's not why they volunteered. It's not. Now today it wouldn't happen because today you have cell phones. Communication is easy. You can get to the person. You get him out quicker without risking the lives in the way that they did in the movie. Yeah, but there was a bunch of things I didn't like about the movie. I also thought Steven Spielberg is very good at playing with your emotions, getting it right, at getting you to experience particular emotions, particular times. He's a little too manipulative with that for my liking. And particularly in that movie and in Schindler's List, I find him too manipulative. All right, Hunter, good night. Good night to all of you. I'm not sure exactly when the next show will be. We'll see how my schedule evolves over the next few days. I will try to do a show over the weekend, and I will try to do one from Miami early next week, or Aventura, where I'm going to be. Yep, I'm looking forward to the weekend where I'm going to go over to Naples and hang out with some friends over there. I will see all of you in the next few days. And we didn't make our goal this time, but I'm going to let you off because I'm just too tired to yell at you and cajole you into doing the $230 that are left in order to get us to $600. Thanks everybody. Thanks for your support. Thanks for being here. Thank you all. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. Next show sometime in the next few days. Bye everybody.